Hello, everyone. Very excited to be here to talk to you all on this blistery, cold Austin Sunday morning. My name is Katie Barrett, and I lead programmatic ad sales for LG Ads. If you haven't heard of us, you've probably heard of LG, the TVs, but we run all of the exclusive data, inventory, and access to 20 million LG homes. And I'm very, very excited to be here today to speak with Kate Brady. And, you know, as we're getting this started, I'd love, Kate, if you could kick it off and just give us a brief introduction of yourself and, you know, your role at PepsiCo as the head of media and partnerships.
Thanks so much, Katie, and thank you for having me here today. I love getting the opportunity to speak about the work that we're doing at PepsiCo right now. I have been in the media industry now for over 20 years. I started my career on the agency side, like many on the client or brand side, and I spent about a decade where I worked across various media agencies, mostly or all Group M in nature. So I started at Bates, went to Media Edge, and then MediaCom. But through that agency side, it was really where I found my passion for innovation and content development and creation, and had the luxury of working on what I still think is probably one of the first consumer engagement campaigns or big ones. Like I had the opportunity to launch the campaign with American Idol and AT&T Wireless when we actually had to teach people how to text message, and this was back in 2002, and I can remember producing these actual print inserts that went into Rolling Stone magazine and Us Weekly, and there were pictures of a Nokia phone that taught you this is how you text, and a little card that you could put into your wallet to actually remind people how to do that. But it really, I think it was the start of what we saw to come and how we saw the space evolve, and it's really where I think I found that passion to just find new ways to engage with consumers. And from there, worked on pharma for a number of years, and then eventually jumped ship to go to Pepsi, because who doesn't want to work at Pepsi? I think, you know, we are an amazing portfolio of brands, and it was such an exciting opportunity. While I was at Pepsi, my first 9 years there, I've now been there almost 12 years. It'll be 12 years next month. But my first 9 years were spent in the media strategy and investment team, where I had the opportunity to work across every single one of our brands in our portfolio, our beverage portfolio, with the exception of Gatorade. And so I've been able to do some amazing things there. When I first started, again, on that content development and innovation space, hopefully some of you remember the Pepsi Refresh Project, and that was the first campaign I got to work on while at Pepsi, where we created over 300 pieces of distinct creative to engage with consumers, working across a number of different partners, and really helped demonstrate how, you know, buying every Pepsi can change the world. And from there, you know, had amazing experiences. I've worked on every tentpole that there is, and spent the last few years in that role working on the Mountain Dew brand, which I think is a phenomenal brand that anyone should, I would hope anyone has the privilege to work on there, where we got to do in the same innovation space. You know, they're always on the cutting edge of trying to push boundaries and do what's next. And one of my favorite things that I got to work on with Mountain Dew was an AR campaign with The Walking Dead. And this was something that was so groundbreaking, because we were at a time when people are tuning away from traditional commercials and really being annoyed by traditional advertising. We found a way to get people to actually actively seek out our commercials, because what this experience unlocked was, by using your phone, when our commercial would come on, it would unlock a capability in your phone that you could bring a walker from The Walking Dead into your living room and interact with it. So, and those unlocked tokens that you could then collect. And so this was really like a first space in a very metaversal type of experience, where you're bringing this deep immersive experience that you're blending these realities. And so that brought me into this last role. That was one of the last campaigns I worked on before coming into this latest role at PepsiCo, leading media innovation and partnership development.
Yeah, and I'd love to dive in a little bit further of that, specifically since we're at South by, how you're leading the media and innovation team, but also how you are working with and helping to foster startups, because I think that's such an interesting role within, such a matrix organization.
Yeah. So. I think I have the best job in the world, which is great. So I'm so fortunate there. But I have the luxury. I think the organization realized that the media landscape is continuing to change. It's becoming so fragmented. There's such a massive acceleration of data-driven opportunities and tech-led innovation. So we needed a dedicated team to help understand what those capabilities are and help bring them to the organization. And so I have the luxury of building out this team from the ground up. It didn't exist before I was in this role. So that's also like an awesome opportunity to be able to help really build something. And so what I like to say is that my team is responsible for identifying what's new, what's next, and what will be the best way for us to connect with our consumers. And the way that we tend to do that most is in partnership with our PepsiCo Labs team, which is our tech venturing arm. We've got a small team. They're headed out of Tel Aviv, Israel, which is a hotbed for the startup community, but we've got someone in San Francisco and in Miami, also just really entrenched with the VC community. And what we do with this role is work across our organization. As I mentioned, we sit in the center, so I work across every brand, every market, and have ongoing dialogues with our colleagues to understand what are those common business challenges that everyone's facing? What are the burning platforms that we need to help try and address? And so from there, we identify, what the core terrains are that we want to focus on. We then work with the PepsiCo Labs team. They help reach out to their network of the VC community, which helps us identify startups. Over the past few years that I've now been in this role, we have met with over 500 startups and evaluated them. From there, we do rapid pilots, really quick, rapid sprints to get this done. And then hopefully we see successes and scale those successes.
Yeah, and when we were talking, it's from from opening up the innovation and partnership team to where we are now, it's been a lot of rapid sprints. There's been a lot of different topics that you all have tackled. So I'd love to just go through the areas of focus and kind of how you evolved and how the team has been evolving.
Yeah, so again, it really is in collaboration with our organization and understanding what are the biggest challenges and the common challenges, because we want to really find those things that we can drive the most value for. And so it has shifted each year. There are some common themes that have continued, though. So the first year that I was in this role, we focused. Creative excellence is a massive priority for us. And so we did a number of pilots across the creative development space and across the creative insights or intelligence space. So that was year one. We ran 4 different pilots right from there. We're scaling with 2 of those partners now. Year 2, we did it, we expanded. I was able to grow my team, so I went from a team of 1, which was a challenging time, to a team of 3. And at that point, we expanded into focusing on creative excellence again. Again, like I said, it's a common theme that hasn't gone away, but expanded to personalization at scale, knowing that that was such a priority across the organization. How do we build those capabilities internally and do that better? Gaming was such a big focus. When you think about the portfolio of brands that PepsiCo has, we really leaned in areas like Mountain Dew and Doritos, but there's so many more opportunities in the gaming space. When you think about, there's over 3 billion gamers, so our 200 plus portfolio of brands, there's probably a lot of other brands that can effectively play in this space. And sports marketing, when you think about our brands, we've got really deep relationships in the sports space. So how do we get better insights? How do we make those dollars work more effectively? And then this past year, was able to expand my team again. We have a 4th member that joined on, so growing, and it was great. And we had focused our efforts, and we're still in pilot for areas around competitive intelligence and performance marketing. Another, key areas that we know are going to continue, and the goal is really building these capabilities internally that we can continue to scale on. And so those pilots are still in the works. We did focus to fewer pilots this past round because now that we've got 2 other years under our belt, we want to continue scaling those ones that we've seen successful. And so we need to make sure that we have enough resources, enough bandwidth to continue the scaling process while we're doing the pilots, while we're scouting what's going to be the program for 2022.
You're not busy at all.
No.
Let's move into our favorite subject that we've been talking about a lot, and I think a lot of people here at South by have been talking about it this week, the metaverse, and really how your team is looking at the metaverse and why you think it's so important for the future of all things, but specifically Pepsi.
Yeah, well, I think you can't turn around without hearing someone talk about some component of the metaverse this weekend. So obviously that had bubbled up, starting in the end of last year as really, and I think especially after Meta became Meta. And so there was the realization across our senior executives that we probably need to know more about this space. So as we think about 2022, the focus of our PepsiCo Labs program is purely around the metaverse space. And so we have SLAM teams that we've developed since about the December timeframe that we are really trying to immerse ourselves into the space, learn as much as we can so that we can build out what is PepsiCo's right to play in the space, what is our global strategic approach of how PepsiCo works in the metaverse. And we know that might vary for each brand, and we know it's going to evolve, but I think this is the time right now that we can start testing and learning, and that we have a little bit more freedom to play around and fail maybe a few times while we figure that out. But we have dedicated teams now that are focused on exploring and understanding capabilities that we could find through the NFT space, the crypto blockchain space, the experiences, and even the future of work. What does it mean as, this pandemic, we've shifted out of this, do we leverage the metaverse to have these continued opportunities that we can collaborate and still be a part?
It's funny when you talk about the future of work, we were both saying we haven't been in person doing this kind of conversation a long time, but we're also being filmed, and there's people watching us on their computers, so we're technically in the metaverse.
We are in the metaverse. We're blending those two realities.
So, one of the things that I just really caught me when we were talking is the fact that your team operates as a startup, really with the kind of nimbleness and agility within such a large organization. So how did you bring the organization along with you to give you the power to have that kind of freedom?
It's a great question, and I think it's so important bringing people along, especially in this new space. I think educating our leadership. But so what we found, and this has been 4 years now. This is the fourth round that we're doing this program. We've iterated the process throughout. We've figured out what's worked. We've made improvements. And so I think we do have a very systematic approach of how we go into this program, which has been phenomenal. And I think it'll probably continue to iterate. But what a huge value that we've found is this year we've formed a Global Innovation Council. And we have people across, key leads across the entire organization. Actually, someone who's going to be speaking later today is part of that council from a food service side. And we do bring people from cross-functional capabilities as well as key leads in different brands, as well as just key subject matter experts that help us identify what's that next round of business challenges, who could potentially scale some of the solutions that we've already vetted and that we think are going to be successful, and just ensuring, the ethos of that team is to champion the efforts that we're trying to scale within the organization, because through this process, we've done a very objective assessment, we've vetted these solutions, and we do have a business case to say this is going to provide incremental value to the organization, so we should be employing them more and more. And so we've developed this model that works, that helps the still challenging change management process, which is still the hardest part of any of this work.
Absolutely. And one of the things we also talked about a lot was in defining innovation. So doing things that have either elaborating on things that have been done before and doing them better, or paving new paths and doing things that have never been done. We talked about the fact that you were like, how do you become an expert in something that hasn't been done? And I think you also, when we were doing the interview process, talked a lot about just how you've set up a very strategic form of KPIs for these programs. So they don't all need to succeed, but you need to track them in a very organized way. So I'd love to talk through that, because I think it's a really interesting aspect of what you're working on.
Yeah, so thank you for that. I think that having a very clear charter and what those clear KPIs are and a very clear measurement plan for anything we do is critical before we start. We are not going to go into anything without having some learnings and insight coming out of it. And I do, you mentioned that sometimes we do fail, and often in this working with startups, there's a lot of failure associated with that. But I think we see those failing opportunities as also just wins often, because we know we've tried something, we've learned something from that, we've realized where we need to pivot moving forward, and it just represents a new opportunity for how we're going to approach things differently next time. So we love we probably love the successes more, but the wins, the failures are always okay as well.
Failure is never a fun word, but you learn more from failures, and learn how to succeed in the future. And I think also when we were talking, it was there's a number of programs that you piloted that have scaled throughout the organization. I'd love to highlight some of those.
Yeah, and so this is my favorite thing to talk about, is just when we do find these things that work and the value that we can bring to the organization. And we're a massive organization. We've shifted a lot into the digital space, and there's ways for us to optimize the way that we're making our dollars. We want every dollar to work harder than the last. When we find those solutions, it's a great validation for our team. A few of those that I know we talked about a bit. One that we're in the final stages of scaling globally has been this platform called CreativeX, and what they help us do is understand in essentially a real-time basis. They help us predict the effectiveness of how our digital assets are going to perform on different platforms. And what we've realized going into the initial, when we started this program or started this pilot, the recognition that we do a lot of rigor when we're evaluating and before we put up any TV or traditional video assets. That same rigor doesn't always happen on the digital side of things. Typically, they're just a cut down of your TV assets. They're not really optimized for the specific platform. They might not be following those traditional brilliant basics of the brand should be in the first few seconds. Things that the data tells us will help it perform better. But through this platform, we've realized that less than 10% of our digital assets were actually being pre-tested before they were going live. And of those that were going live, less than 25% of them were actually hitting all of those brilliant basics that we needed them to do. And when you think about creative effectiveness drives maybe as little as a third, but it could be as much as 2/3. I've even seen stats of 80% of your ROI contribution. If we can improve that creative effectiveness, even 5 or 10%, the total value that's going to drive on a sales value opportunity for us is so significant. And then when you think about the sheer size of PepsiCo and our global brands, and if we can roll this out across the organization, we're talking a really hefty amount of money that we can turn back into the organization. So huge opportunity. So to be able to help make that change across the organization and build that new ways of working has been a huge success for us. So super thrilled about that. So that's on the more data insight side. I think on the more innovative, tech-driven side, one that we talked about is a partner called Myriad. And when you think about we do recognize that people are tending to avoid traditional ads. They're using ad blocking technology, or they're skipping through DVR and commercials. And we've always been a big advocate of product integration, and there's challenges though that are there. It's something we're still going to continue to do, but there are sometimes lengthier times of lead time to get into there, and once the product's in there, it's set. What this company can do is they have an AI-based platform that can scan the content. They have an arsenal of content, and then can digitally insert our products, our signage, video assets into this existing content. And now they're able to do it dynamically, so that they can leverage data signals to say that Katie's going to see a piece of content with a bubbly can in it, because we know that that's what she's a huge fan of. Whereas I might see that same piece of content and it's serving me the scene, but with Diet Wild Cherry Pepsi, because that's my favorite brand. So I think the opportunities are really interesting of what you can do. But through this program, these are young startup companies that we're working with to help mold and build capabilities together. And we've actually worked with them to develop the ability to integrate into live content. So Mountain Dew is a massive NBA sponsorship. We have the 3-Point is our marquee event with them. And what we were able to do over the summer through a proof of concept is integrate Dew assets. So Mountain Dew bolts, if someone was shooting a 3-pointer, made the 3-point, the backboard would explode into Dew bolts, and bring that really buzzworthy engagement that you weren't seeing in your traditional, that's making that direct association that Mountain Dew and a 3-pointer, that connection is there. So really impressive of these things that are to come, that I know you were telling me about how you had those conversations of you can't do it yet, but you can do it now. And you can do competitive conquesting, and you can do all these different things that that a few years ago we didn't think was a reality, but now we're actually able to do, which is so exciting.
Well, and it's so great to see Pepsi really leading the path of that innovation led by your team. You're referring to, so I worked for an augmented reality company, and someone asked me, and this was 4 years ago, if they could use computer vision to overlay a car onto another car's commercial. And I thought about it and said, maybe in the future at some point. And then we started talking, and I realized that future was last year. You've already been doing this.
Yep.
And so when we, dive deeper into the metaverse, there's probably some people who are shaking their heads saying, the metaverse, like, what's the metaverse? No one's going to use the metaverse. By the way, we also said that about the internet. We said that about mobile. We said that about Twitter. We said that about every buzz subject that happens at South by. So I feel like if it buzzes at South by, its potential for being very big is pretty insane. So, I feel like there was a lot within your own team where you took, this hybrid work situation and building a new team to interact in different ways than that was traditional for Pepsi. And I'd love to just talk about, how you built out the innovation and partnership team and some of the key and core elements of that.
Yeah, so it's a very collaborative team. It's a very nimble, flexible team. I think we work. COVID actually didn't really impact us much, and I think it made us actually work faster and better because we were all so global. It gave us the opportunity. We weren't flying across the country to meet with people. It forced us to have a lot more deeper engagement. We ran the first big program fully virtual, and I think no one thought that could happen, and it was such a success to be able to do that and continue to replicate it, that I think we've proven ourselves as a model in the organization of what can be done in this really nimble, agile view, and so we're really proud.
I also am really proud of us because we made it halfway through our panel and we only said COVID once, but we said metaverse 8 times. So I think the tide might be changing a little bit. In honor of International Women's Month and just, I think there's been so many great conversations that's gone on in this room as well as in a lot of other rooms at South by. I'd love to talk about, your thoughts on female leadership and how you're elevating women in the workplace and really your thoughts on mentors and mentees. It's a loaded question. There's a lot in there, but I think that Pepsi's doing some really innovative things on that end of the coin as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm very fortunate that I have some amazing mentors that I can look up to that have really guided me in my career. But I've also had the opportunity to mentor some women within the organization, and our beverages team actually established a female-focused mentoring pod group that there's a few of them across the beverages team. I have the luxury of leading a group of 9 different women that we meet on roughly a monthly basis. And through that, there are varying levels, but across the beverages sector, and they do work across different brands, different parts of the country. And so it's an opportunity for them as they are younger executives growing into the organization to meet people. And Pepsi's such a massive matrix organization, so it's really challenging. And I think your network is one of the most important things that you can build, and it's one of the most important tools in your arsenal as you're growing your career. And so having the ability to help build this ongoing connection with these women and help champion their successes and help problem solve through them, I think has been such a great value to me, and I hope to them as well. This past year, I've been asked to mentor a couple other women from our global team, so I'm now mentoring someone in Australia that's proven challenging because of time zone challenges, but we're trying to make it work, and someone else in our LATAM business who's taking on more of a media role for the first time ever. So it's been great to help share what I've been able to do in the past, and I just find it such a privilege. And I also think it's so important because I have 2 teenage daughters, and so for me, I want to be someone that they aspire to want to be like in the future. And so it's something that I just think is so important, and I want them to see that you can be a working mom and be there for your family, but also have a really successful career and be really excited and passionate about what you do and love the work that you're doing.
And I love that. And it's we talked about this when the sense of your daughters. It's like if you see her, you can be her. And I think there's so many great examples that we're seeing of that across South by this week. What other innovation trends are you getting excited about? And if you had your magic wand, what would you say would be maybe it's the metaverse, but the biggest trend to come out of this weekend?
I think you can't deny that the metaverse is the biggest trend coming out of, like I said, you cannot turn around without seeing someone talk about the metaverse, which just does really make me so excited, knowing that that is my team's focus right now, is trying to figure this space out. And I know we were talking about what's your definition. It's such a crazy thing that I don't think you will find a common definition by, I think there's similarities, but it's really such a nascent space that I think that definition is going to continue to evolve over the next few years, and I think it's going to take a few years for us to get there. But it's so exciting to be there and learning on the ground. And like you were saying, people were questioning the internet years ago. People were questioning mobile and social and all of those trends. And I'd love to see 10 years from now look back at this and be like, yeah, I remember when everybody was questioning, is this just hype? Is this really going to happen? And I wish I had a crystal ball to see where it's going to be, but I do feel like it's going to happen. And who are going to be the players there? I don't think we're going to know for a bit of time, but it's exciting to be a part of being on the ground floor and helping figure out how we're going, as a PepsiCo, how we're going to explore.
This has been so exciting. I've learned so much from you, Kate, and for everyone else, Pepsi is doing such amazing things. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I loved chatting with you this weekend. It's been great.